Good afternoon. My name is Jen from the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging, and thank you for joining us today for the impact of cybercrimes on mental health in older adults. This program is part of our series of virtual programs for caregivers that we provide each month. This program is being recorded, and we will be sharing the link with you all in an email in the next couple of days. The recording will also be shared on our website, on the event registration page, in our resource library, and on our YouTube channel. Please feel free to share that with friends and family who could not join us today. We have a lot of great information to cover this afternoon, so we're going to hold all questions until after the presentation. However, you may submit a question at any time using the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Benjamin Rose. We're a Cleveland-based nonprofit founded in 1908. Our mission is to support caregivers and empower all people to age well through research, consumer responsive services, and client advocacy. We provide a variety of services and supports to help people age well in the community. That includes behavioral health services, social work, counseling and coaching to help people achieve financial wellness and housing stability. And we also operate the Rose Centers for Aging Well, our senior centers located throughout the Cleveland area, and we are a Meals on Wheels provider. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Tam Cooper, Director of Behavioral Health Services here at Benjamin Rose. Please join me in welcoming Tam.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to listen in on one of our series for virtual caregivers. Today I have the pleasure of speaking on the impact of cybercrimes on mental health in older adults. Before we get started, I would just like to talk a little bit more about some of our services. As Jen told you, Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging has been in Cleveland for 112 years, and we are certainly recognized as a national leader in our mission to support caregivers and, again, empower all people to age well through research, consumer responsive services, and client advocacy. Next slide, please. We provide in-person and telephone-based health and wellness services, both locally and nationally. And we develop innovative solutions to everyday issues faced by older people and their families. We foster informed engagement with public policy issues impacting the field of aging. Next slide. Now, Jen spoke a little bit about the work of our subsidiaries, which include Elder Care Services Institute. And I'd like to tell a little more about ESOP, which is empowering and strengthening Ohio's people. And they too play a role in working with the mental health component and financial component for cybercrimes. So ESOP is a full service HUD-approved housing and financial counseling agency, which helps people in every stage of life become empowered to take control of their finances and make a plan for financial stability and afford sustainable home ownership. Rose Centers for Aging Well has home delivered meals, socialization opportunities, health and wellness programs, and meals in 6 Rose Centers senior locations. And of course, there's the Margaret Wagner Apartments, which is senior housing, and it is HUD subsidized that provides older adults age 62 and older secure, affordable, and supportive housing. And then our Center for Research and Education, which works tirelessly to find different projects that can prove through research and education how different programs support different projects for older adults. Next slide, please. When you leave today, I hope that you will have information that can help you with the knowledge of what is a cybercrime. And just for some of you grammar geeks, you will notice that cybercrime here is spelled as one word. Well, that goes along with the AP Associated Press spelling. Now, if you will look up under the FBI, they use cybercrime as 2 words. So that's just a little tidbit of information there. Cybercrimes that target older adults, and there are many, many cybercrimes out there. the impact of cybercrime on mental health, which truly is profound, working through that trauma. And then finally, there are resources in the community, resources in Cuyahoga County for those impacted by cybercrime. And December marks the 5th anniversary for our own Consumer Affairs Department in Cuyahoga County of the Scam Squad. So I'd like to give a particular shout out to them. They have been extremely helpful to all the older folks out in Cuyahoga County, because their mission really is to try and stop and help people who have been impacted by this. So happy birthday, Scam Squad, and keep on going. Next slide, please. And let me hold on here so nothing comes through on that end. Whoop. Just a second. There we go. So what is cybercrime? You know, this was very interesting to me. Now, 1991, and that doesn't seem so long ago to me. I guess maybe that dates me, right? But Merriam-Webster, the dictionary, defines it. It was first used in 1991, and it was referred to as a computer crime. So it's a criminal activity that was carried out by means of a computer or the internet, such as fraud, theft, distribution of child pornography. And it's a crime that's committed using a computer, okay, or some kind of digital device. And it could be a phone, cell phone, or tablet. And it has gained popularity through the use of social media. Now, there are two types of categories. One, it's a criminal activity that targets something, or it's an activity, again, that uses a computer to commit crimes. Next slide, please. As I looked further into this, I was, and in my opinion, just truly aghast at some of the crimes that target older adults. And I was floored. And while I can't see any of you out there in the virtual world, my guess is that some of you will be floored too if you haven't been involved in this or immersed in this. Alzheimer's disease treatment. Can you imagine the people, many of us know someone or have someone in our lives that suffer from this terrible disease. And so there are people out there trying to sell a cure for Alzheimer's disease. And that's one of the #1 cybercrimes that target older adults. Now, the people that you would want to report this to would be the Federal Drug Administration or the Consumer Affairs Department here. You know, we're all desperate to try and help our loved ones. And so there are people out there that are not as savvy, that when they get a call or they see something, they want to help. They want to get something to help their loved one. Next on the list is a romance scam or sweetheart scam. And this has really grown a lot, not surprisingly, during COVID. The romance scams went up nearly 20% in 2020. And so the Federal Trade Commission's 2020 Age and Fraud Report showed that people aged 40 to 79 had the most money defrauded in romance scams. So let's think about this. You're an older adult, and through your lifespan, different things have happened. Your children have grown up and left the home. Your spouse has maybe passed away, or your partner has left. Maybe you've moved out of your house into an apartment, or you've moved in a place that you are not familiar with, you know, a different neighborhood. During COVID, we all had to shelter in place isn't quite the right word, but we, you know, really had to distance ourselves. So there was a decrease in socialization, and we were lonely, right? So older people already were in a state where they didn't have much socialization. So you're sitting at home, someone calls you, you know, the senior centers had closed down, people weren't coming over to visit. You get a call, you see something on the computer, and you long to have that connection. Seems kind of natural that these scams, these romance things would go up. It starts out, oh, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Oh, you know, hey, honey, you look really pretty today. And, you know, and the next thing it's, geez, you know, I'd really like to talk to you more, but you know, I need some more money to buy a phone call card or iTunes. You know, I'm based offshore and I need this or that. And the next thing you know, I need to buy a computer, or I got in some trouble, and there goes the money. So that goes to the Federal Trade Commission reporting. Predatory lending. I know that the professionals over in ESOP see a number of people who've been involved in some of these scams, long-term loans with unreasonably high interest. Grandparent scams, or people that get phone calls at a grandkid that they didn't really know about, or a cousin or somebody. Oh my goodness, I know you didn't know about me, but I've been arrested or I've been hurt and I need money and I'd heard all about you and I just never knew when to reach out to you. You know, people want a connection. They get the phone call, send me some money, and there it goes. Medicare, Social Security targets, the lottery and sweepstake. You have won $2,500 or $5,000 if you just send me $500 in iTunes cards or whatever it is, you know, and that's a registration fee. If you will just send me that, we will give you the rest of this money. And some of the people say, well, I can't get it to you today. I can get it to you next week. Oh, we can wait. We'll make a special dispensation, you know. And there it goes. And then there's a charity. If, you know, especially during times when there's natural disasters, hurricanes, when Texas had all the electricity went out, the fires in California, you know, phone calls to the generation difference. You know, older generations that people either have savings, pensions, preying upon someone's good nature. These are the things that when they can target older adults. Next slide. So what makes someone a target? Now remember, it's not everyone, but it's some people. And part of these are, again, some generational issues. You know, one of the traits down here, it says overly trusting of others. Now, I would never tell my daughters, you know, if something happened to go like 4 doors down to the neighbor, or when somebody knocks at the door to let them in, right? You know, I'll let so-and-so in. But when I was raised, it was like, oh, you know, just leave the doors open, let so-and-so come in. It's okay, no worries, right? You know, trust everybody, which is like a lot of older adults, overly trusting. You know, so if somebody's on the computer, somebody's calling you, you trust them. And that's where today, and since the pandemic, it's a double-edged sword that we deal with in terms of technology. It's a really great thing that we are helping our older adults by providing them with digital technology. I know that here at our behavioral health services and through ESOP, and I know at a number of other community agencies, we've been able to provide people with different tablets, computers, and also teach them at the same time not only how to use these pieces of technology, but also teach them that you have to be careful. You have to be aware of what can go wrong, not to trust everybody. But not everyone does that. There's a good piece. It increases socialization. It helps you maintain doctor's visits, therapy visits, but that you can't, it would be like handing over a dangerous weapon to someone and not teaching them the safety. So, there's a lot of parts to this. Cognitive decline. Experiencing a lack of a sense of purpose gives someone perhaps a sense of, of becoming a target. Feeling unseen or lonely. The desire to make a connection, to break feelings of loneliness. Don't we all want to feel connected? Don't we all want to feel like we mean something to someone else? Impulsivity, that difficulty controlling obsessions. I mean, I love watching TV. I'm sure some of you do too, but some of the advertising can be pretty persuasive when it comes, especially to shopping. You're sitting there, you're watching a show, and it's two people trying to sell you a dress or a piece of jewelry or equipment, and they're sitting there and they're saying, oh, if you only buy this one thing, this one dress, and just imagine yourself sitting there and the wind's blowing through your hair and you have this dress on and you'll be having drinks on a warm day and your friends are coming over. And so if you've already having problems, difficulty, spending, or you're lonely, you start to picture this. Okay, so you got then you have somebody on the computer you've never met. And it's been a long time since someone has called you sweetheart or said they loved you right away. So you've got difficulty with impulses, and they're saying, well, why would it be impossible to believe that we could fall in love, after we've only talked 3 times and we've never met? Yeah, that might make it easy for you to become a target for this person on the 4th conversation to ask you for $1,000, and you're willing to shell it out. Relying more heavily on that first piece of information offered. Again, now we look for a 3rd and 4th opinion, where in the past, maybe in a different generation, your word was your bond, and we went with one piece of information. Next slide. So all those things before, as we focus on impact on mental health, it's looking at who, if we're a caregiver, who are we looking at? What is the person that we're taking care of? How are they living by themselves? What is the makeup of that person? What are they exposed to? What is their character, if you will? And what about you? One of the big pieces is this, again, the sweetheart scam or the romance scam. Because again, loneliness it's so hard. If you've lost a spouse or a partner, and don't ever discount the feeling of the loss of a pet. Children have come and gone for a long time, or spouse, but pets, the love of a pet is profound. So a sweetheart scammer knows all this, but their advantage is they are persistent. They've got lots of time. They've got a lot of people on the line for fake relationships. And they've sucked in a lot of lonely people. They're like somebody who's sitting on a boat with a lot of fishing lines in the water, and they've got time. Days, weeks, months, they don't care. They're sitting there waiting. And that's the really tragic part, because the person on the other end thinks that they're the only one. And our responsibility as professionals or loved ones, when I say professionals, it goes from therapists, community workers, police, etc., is we need to watch our words. These criminals are not smart. Victims are not gullible, foolish, or stupid. These are felons who are manipulative, and they prey on someone's vulnerabilities. I liken this to a number of years ago to rape victims. A lot of people didn't want to report crimes against them because they were felt ashamed and embarrassed. They didn't want to go in and report a crime because they didn't want someone to say to them, you know, did you ask for it? What did you wear? How were you dressed? This is your fault. They didn't want to be shamed. And a number of these people who have been involved in it don't want to bear a lot of that shame either. Now, also a number of people who've been impacted are still very much in denial. You know, this person in their mind was the love of their life, and who wants to go turn in the love of their life? So there's already a lot of shame, embarrassment, depression. So we just have to be aware of how we treat people who've been impacted by this. Next slide. So the impact is very real. The emotional response is very real for everyone involved. Depression, guilt, shame, feelings of inadequacy, lack of trust in self, extended periods of sadness, and suicidal thoughts. If you leave here with, if you are listening to this presentation, and if you've been impacted by this either directly or indirectly, and you only leave with one thing, I want you to know that you are not alone, okay? The feelings that you have are very real, and I want you to get help. I don't want you to feel foolish. I don't want you to feel stupid. You were hurt, and I want you to reach out and get help. And at the end, we're going to talk about some resources, but your feelings are real and you are not alone. You may be feeling depressed. You certainly are feeling grief, a loss of a romanticized relationship or an idealized relationship. That was real to you. Anxiety, you know, thinking about this relationship, what it could have been, what it wasn't, feeling embarrassed to come forward to authorities or to your family, avoidance of anything related to a scam. And then post-traumatic stress disorder. This is trauma. It truly is trauma. You could be having chronic nightmares, you know, disturbing thoughts and feelings related to the event. I mean, so many things have happened. Next slide. I want to say that you always need to consult a licensed professional and seek outside help if you or a loved one is experiencing symptoms of emotional distress. You know, education and recognizing when you are being targeted is key to scam prevention. what's interesting is that for younger people, well, for everybody, obviously, the loss of money is important. Okay, I mean, there's certainly no doubt about it, because you know, we all need to live off the money that we have, and sometimes with this loss of money for families, it's not only a generational loss or inheritance for the adult who has been impacted by this. You know, they may not even have anything left to live on, but for that older adult, it's the loss of the relationship. It's the love that they thought they had that's missing most. They grieve more over that loss of a relationship, and it's very, very difficult. But education and recognizing when you are being targeted is key to that scam prevention. Next slide. So what's left? The emotional scars are very real for the victim and the family. Family members lose inheritance, commodities, caregiver fatigue, and learning of loved ones' financial losses. I mean, if an older adult is living alone, they may not have shared with their family that they had this romance going on. This may come as a total shock if the person passes away and the family goes to see about the will or the house. The house may have been, a will may have been rewritten, the house may have been turned over to somebody else, it may be in foreclosure, bank accounts may have been drained, there's any number of things could have happened. Or the person could still be alive and all these things can be exposed. So there's a lot of different things that could happen. And it's important that family members or caregivers, if you are living at a distance from your loved one, there's always opportunities to try and keep track. We live in a world where we are no longer a nuclear family. We have a program here at Benjamin Rose. It's called We Care Because You Do. And it's really a neat program where you can contact our agency, ask for We Care, and they have different resources that they're able to just kind of check in on the person that's living here so that you kind of have a finger on what's going on. So, I mean, you don't have to live right in Cleveland to know what's going on with your loved one, and that's important. But from another mental health perspective is just, if you have been impacted by it, you can reach out to Benjamin Rose, because we do our behavioral health services. We do provide counseling services and appropriate referrals if you've been impacted by this. And also, you know, throughout Cuyahoga County, there are different agencies that do this as well. But again, we do have a line that works with people who've been affected by cybercrimes. Next slide. Now, some very important community resources that can be used to report some of these crimes, if you will. There's the AARP Fraud Watch Network line, and we've listed some websites, some phone numbers. You can go online. Jen said this would be posted later. We've got Benjamin Rose. The Department of Consumer Affairs is awesome. The Scam Squad has a lot of resources. The Division of Senior and Adult Services. Really important ways that they can help direct you to some certain services. Better Business Bureau, Federal Trade Commission, Ohio Attorney General's Office. You know, hang up. If a caller threatens to arrest you or freeze your accounts, hang up. If a caller asks for personal information or computer access, hang up. And if a caller demands you pay now using gift cards, money wires, or Bitcoin, hang up. And that's all courtesy from the Scam Squad. Next slide. And just pretty quick here, our behavioral health services at Benjamin Rose does a number of different things. We have mental health case management. We make connections to psychiatric and medical care, housing, and other entitlements specific to individual needs. We do counseling, one-on-one talk therapies with licensed social worker to provide support. We have trauma-informed treatment with a focus on trauma and COVID-19. Treatment integrates breathing, coping techniques to manage anxiety and trauma-related issues, just like with people who've been affected by cybercrimes. And mental health day treatment. It's an intensive 3-hour group therapy for those living with severe mental illness. We believe that with support and counseling from our behavioral health team, you or your loved one will be empowered to manage your mental or emotional problems. I really appreciate everyone listening today, and I hope that I provided you with some information that will be beneficial to you in this new world that we live in.
Great, thank you, Tam. I think now we're gonna move over to Julie and see if we have any questions.
All right, thank you, Tam. So our first question is, you mentioned that a lot of the motivation behind a loved one being scammed is that they're trying to find connection. So how can we help loved ones find healthier ways to connect with people online?
Well, I think a lot of this is driven by, we have to empower our loved ones with knowledge. If they, there's a couple different things. Being connected with groups that we know already exist. If there's senior centers that operate online, so connecting with already established senior groups that practice online, so that we know that those are healthy connections. There's things that are sponsored by local libraries, by local senior centers. Those would be great ways to socialize. You know, I'm not so sure that dating websites are the best. So I would check with those. I would check with local agencies, even the local Adamus board too, to see what suggestions that they would have for different organizations that would be appropriate and safer. And always check with your loved one. Hey, who are you? It's just like checking with a kid. Who are you talking to? Can I see who you're with? Your history. That's my suggestion.
All right, thank you. So another question is, what should we do if we have a loved one who is in denial about being in a romance scam?
Well, not knowing all the details, I would first of all see if you could talk to a professional, so we could see how far in that person is. You know, you can call Benjamin Rose and we can talk about it. You could call the Scam Squad and find out. You should report if you're sure that the person has been taken advantage of, you can report that scam. And those are some of the first steps. Sometimes, you know, it all depends. There have been some circumstances where some people have been really so steeped in this that if the person who's involved in the scam doesn't want to get out of it, it's really to work with. There have been some instances where there's been some type of intervention and the person who has been like involved in that relationship, they've been able to be motivated to get out. Sometimes that other, sometimes, and I have to use the word sometimes because it's always individualized, depending upon what that particular scam is, that party could also be unwittingly violating a law. If that's the, not that they would be prosecuted, but if they come to realize, oh my goodness, I'm doing something illegal, that kind of helps them move out of the way as well. So it's good for them to talk to, I'm on the mental health perspective. I deal with the mental health component, but there's other agencies that deal from another perspective.
All right, thank you very much. So one last question. So if you suspect a loved one may be being scammed, but they're not telling you directly, how can you approach them without being too accusatory and more respectful?
Well, I would ask myself what makes me suspect that they're being scammed, first of all. And then I would kind of say to them, I would have to evaluate what's my relationship with them. Do I have a good relationship with that person? Am I pretty distant? Because if I'm distant from that person, anything I say to them is going to be pretty defensive, right? If I have a good relationship with them, I might kind of play Columbo. Hey, Mom, I went to pay your bills and I noticed that there's, a check made out to Joe Blow off in Belize. I didn't know we had a cousin in Belize. Can you tell me about that? Kind of go at it that way. Because sometimes kids or somebody pays the bills. You could check with the bank and find out. So that's would be my way. It depends on where you have that access to and what relationship. Banks also, if this involves a lot of money, banks are mandated reporters. If there's money going out to large sums of money being withdrawn or written to people that typically aren't, these checks aren't being made out to, the bank has an obligation to make a report. So there's another avenue. Usually people in these relationships are reluctant to report it. But I would start questioning sooner than later because you don't want whoever it is to lose a lot of money. Take a look at what's going on. If, I think, well, for our purposes here at our agency, like I said, we deal with people that are age 55 and over. So, as I said, the scams, the ripple effect, it's not only just the person who's involved in that scam, but it's the whole family. And as I listen to the questions, it breaks my heart because everybody is affected. You're worried sick about your loved one. You wonder what's happening. And that's the whole thing. It's what's happening to me. I would really recommend too that anybody that's listening, go look at some of these websites, whether it's the Ohio Attorney General's website, Consumer Affairs. There's a lot of good information about people involved in scams, what it looks like, information for family members. If you want to call up for behavioral health services here, and something that we can talk about, or like I said, consumer affairs, maybe they can help if you're in that piece. But that's how I would attach this.
All right, Tam, thank you. That was our last question. Thank you for taking the time to answer those.
I hope I helped.
Okay, well, I want to thank you, Tam, and I don't know if you have anything more to say, but here is the contact slide if anyone has any questions and wanted to contact you directly. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today for this program. We hope you'll join us for future virtual programs for caregivers, which are offered monthly. And more details on our next program will be available soon on our website at www.benrose.org. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.